One of the interesting things throughout the history of Nintendo is that Mario and Zelda have been so prevalent and tied to the base and how the systems do. It almost seems as if every single year we have to have one of those franchises in order for Nintendo to have success for that year. But I think that one big thing, that one tweet that I saw kind of completely busted the myth of all Nintendo fans buy as Mario and Zelda, Nintendo needs Mario and Zelda, is the fact that we don't have a lot of these traditional franchises that people kind of associate with Nintendo here in 2022. But this year in 2022, we've gotten so many games and such a good variety that I feel that it's been just as hype or almost as hype as any other year Nintendo has had, and it completely destroys the myth that people have said for decades with Nintendo platforms. But before we get into that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now, shout outs to Boundary Break. He had this tweet on Twitter and I'm not hating on it. The first thing that I said to him after I saw it was, well, a bad take is a bad take. And at its core, I do think what he had to say here is a bad take, but I'm not hating on him for it, and that's his opinion. But I wanted to talk about this because once again, I think that this completely destroys the Mario and Zelda myth with Nintendo fans and with the Nintendo Switch. So let's just read off the tweet here and then we'll get into what I have to say on this. So on Twitter, he had this to say about this year's lineup for Nintendo Switch. 2022 is definitely just a massive strike out for Nintendo first party for me. I can't say they didn't bring a bevy of choices, but without a traditional Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Animal Crossing, Star Fox, Pikmin, Donkey Kong, Smash Bros, or Punch-Out game, I'm feeling a drought. So these are all the traditional Nintendo franchises that have been around since the beginning or the N64 days. All of these games have had multiple entries across Nintendo's older legacy systems, and that's usually what Nintendo is known for. And Boundary Break is known for doing great videos on YouTube. Make sure you guys check them out on YouTube. But I wanted to talk about this because despite Nintendo not having any of those games, I'm still looking at the lineup and the games that I've played this year and thinking, whoa, wait a minute. This year has been extremely good for me personally, at least. And there isn't a major traditional Mario, Zelda, Smash, Animal Crossing, Metroid, or anything like that in sight, because I think that Nintendo has finally really gotten to the masses to where they've expanded further than Mario and Zelda and the Wii whatever games, right? Nintendo Switch Sports, Wii Sports, Wii Fit, whatever the case is, because that's where they really hung their hat on with the Wii. And even though the Wii U didn't do that well with the Wii U, but I think that with the Nintendo 3DS, it was even still kind of like that as well. But with the Nintendo Switch, there are so many other franchises that they've been able to tap into, especially with this year, that I'm thinking, man, this has been awesome. Don't get me wrong, a traditional Mario or Zelda game, obviously, that would have been great. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out next year, so I'm hyped for that, and we'll see what the Mario team is doing, if there's going to be a Donkey Kong game that's rumored, or what they're going to do with the next big 3D Mario game, if they're saving that for next gen. But it tells me, because I'm looking at what Twitter is saying, I'm looking at what the comments are saying, I'm looking at what social media is saying, and people for the large part are buying new games in 2022 on the Nintendo Switch and are pretty happy with what Nintendo's been doing. Pokemon Legends Arceus started off the year very hot for Nintendo. That game sold like crazy. Games like Triangle Strategy and also Kirby and the Forgotten Land came in. We had Nintendo Switch Sports. We had Mario Strikers. We had Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. We had Live Alive and also Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So while those are not the major outside of Pokemon and maybe even Kirby, Nintendo Switch Sports kind of, those aren't like the major Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, those type of games, they're still really good games that reviewed well and are selling well too. And I think that the biggest one for me that kind of shows that Nintendo is definitely done with the whole has to be Mario and Zelda every single year, and if it's not that, then it's a problem, is the fact that so many people are playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and the validation through the review scores of the game and what they did with that game, getting more people to play it, getting the marketing up for the game, getting the tutorial better, making the gameplay better, really taking the time and effort that they needed. needed. But even then, stuff like Splatoon, which is more of a newer end franchise, is also coming as well. And then of course the big one for me too, which is Bayonetta 3, that's going to be coming in October, along with not a traditional Mario game, but Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which looks as high quality of a traditional Mario game or one of the Mario games in the past. That franchise is fantastic. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is a great game, so it almost feels as if it is that next Mario RPG or that next big Mario title, for me at least, based on the games that I like to play. Heck, I'll take Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope over a traditional new Super Mario Bros. Game or something like that. So for me, this has been a phenomenal year, and a year that Nintendo's actually been able to show that, hey, we are more than Mario and also Zelda. But I will say this, I completely understand what some people are saying in that thread, and also what Mr. Boundary Break had to say too. There are people that like those traditional franchises, that want to see those franchises pretty much every single year. A lot of these games are pretty much from like the N64, GameCube style franchises, where a lot of these people that want this grew up in that era, and those are the games that they identify with Nintendo the most and everything. And I completely understand. Most of those franchises though have already gotten a release on the Nintendo Switch with a lot of content as well. We've already gotten a Super Mario Odyssey game. Obviously it's been a while, but we've already gotten that. Zelda's clearly coming next year, but there's been multiple re-releases of Zelda games. Maybe we get the Wind Waker HD and also Twilight Princess HD announcement. Metroid just got a release last year with Metroid Dread, and that's fantastic as well. Animal Crossing just came out in 2020. We still are missing Star Fox, Donkey Kong, Smash Brothers. They only do one per generation on those, so some of those are like, okay, well, we've already gotten those, so there's really no need to kind of get another major one, or they'd be rushing it, or they're doing extra content for it. But I think that at the same time, I completely understand what's going on there. But I will say this, man, this year Nintendo proved that they are more than that, and I'm so much looking forward to some of these big games. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to me has been one of the best games that I've ever played. I'm 110 hours plus in. I'm not exactly sure what hour count I'll have when I finish the game, but all I know is that it's the most addictive game that I've played on the Nintendo Switch since The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild back in 2017. When it comes to major game that you can spend 100 plus hours to, I haven't played another game more addictive than this game right here. I mean, it's been a long time. 2017 was the last time for that. So very excited for more people to get into Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I think that Splatoon 3 and also Bayonetta 3 are going to be fantastic late style games when the system is on its last half and there's so much bigger install base to people to finally try out. I think that this was the time to kind of show what they can do and expand their IPs, that it's just more than what we typically get. But I think that the future for Nintendo and what they do is going to be incredibly interesting. What franchises are going to be coming back? What can they do to kind of expand a little bit? I do want to talk about the future just a bit with some of these games too, to see potentially what we could be getting. So let's go ahead and start with Donkey Kong. Now, I did mention before that Donkey Kong, there's been some rumors about the Mario Odyssey team or the Mario team making a new Donkey Kong, kind of bringing that back, because Donkey Kong, while Tropical Freeze was really good, I think that Tropical Freeze is great. I think that fans have been looking for a new 3D Donkey Kong game, or at least maybe even a 2D game that blends with 3D. Fans have been looking for something in the Donkey Kong franchise for multiple years now. Tropical Freeze was in 2014, so it's going on a decade now at this point. So I think that moving on to the next thing would be great, and I'm hoping we see something from Donkey Kong soon. Now, next up, we got to talk about Star Fox, right? Now, Star Fox on the Wii U, obviously Platinum Games with the gamepad, they did the best they can with Miyamoto kind of interfering a bit. I think that if Platinum Games was able to make the game that they completely wanted to make with Star Fox, I think it would have turned out a bit different, and I think that Star Fox on the Wii U would have done a bit better. However, it was kind of doomed because most games, when it comes to non-big or major franchise on Wii U, didn't do that great. So I don't know how well it could have done, but it definitely could have done better than what it did, in my opinion. at least. So we'll see what happens with Star Fox. I'm guessing that Nintendo is going to wait before they find another team to kind of get that done. There's been some rumors that Star Fox could be coming back in some type of way, shape, or form, that Nintendo's working on something, but we're going to have to wait to see if that actually happens. Now, when it comes to Pikmin, there was Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe is the best-selling Pikmin game of all time, with it being a little bit over 2 million as of the last time that we heard about the sales, which was about 6 months after it released a couple years ago. So I do think that Pikmin 4, maybe one of these days, that resurfaces as something for the Nintendo Switch, but we just don't know at this point. Punch-Out has been dead for a very long time. The last time that we saw Punch-Out was back in 2009, 2010. So I don't know when Punch-Out is coming back. But besides what was stated here, I mean, there's still more stuff. We need to know what's happening with Advance Wars Reboot Camp, but that's not a new title. There's also Kid Icarus as well. What's going on with that? That's been dead since the Nintendo 3DS. When it comes to 2012, that year, there was rumors that Bandai Namco is remastering a game from Nintendo's legacy IPs. Bandai Namco has worked on previous Nintendo franchises like Star Fox, so maybe something like that comes from somewhere from them, which we did talk about on this channel. You can check out that. So I do think that there are a number of franchises that Nintendo can still address, and I feel that if they're going to extend the life of the Nintendo Switch beyond what all of us are thinking, then some of these legacy franchises would be good to bring out at the end, as you have a huge install base and you can kind of assure that there's enough people that have the system to buy it. I think it's kind of tough when you release a legacy franchise or a franchise that doesn't do as well sales wise at the beginning of a system's launch, and you kind of hope that people pick it up. It's always tough because there's just not enough users there in order for that game to truly reach its potential. But now with the Nintendo Switch with 100 million units sold, I think that Nintendo definitely has a beat on potentially releasing a new Kid Icarus or a new Star Fox or a Pikmin or a Donkey Kong or whatever the case is, and more people would pick it up now at this point because of that install base and how Nintendo does their first party games, and especially if it reviews well. You're seeing that with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, not a traditional big selling franchise, but it's doing extremely well because of the reviews and because of the install base. Those are two things. More people that just have the Switch that are looking for something to play say, okay, it reviewed well, people are talking about it, now I'll pick it up. Not a Xenoblade fan or didn't play the games beforehand, but I'll check it out now at this point. So I'm thinking that some of these other franchises could get that treatment with announcements, maybe in a September Nintendo Direct or Nintendo Direct later in the year, or maybe even something that gets announced next year at E3, if there is one, Nintendo has something, or at a Nintendo Direct in the early year or something like that. I still feel that Nintendo isn't quite done with the Nintendo Switch games, although I do feel that they've moved on many of their big and main teams to the next Switch. I think that there are research and development and planning. Nintendo invested about $1 billion into software, just games, and that's not being invested into the standard Nintendo Switch. That is next gen investments. So we'll see what Nintendo does for their games going forward, but I'm very optimistic about the future, while acknowledging, yeah, there's definitely some deficiencies. There's definitely some things that Nintendo could do better with their legacy IP and with the different styles of games to kind of feel out for more Nintendo fans. But at the same time, I think that this year in particular, because I've been having a blast playing through a lot of the games, proves that they don't always need Mario and Zelda. There are other games, people are buying other stuff, and that when those games are ready, people will be there to buy them on whatever platform they're on when it comes to Mario, Zelda, and the traditional stuff. So what are your thoughts when it comes to what I had to say here, and what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to a legacy IP coming back or something else? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.